listening to the Travelogue podcast on travelogue.media.
Bem-vindo. Bienvenida.
Bienvenue.
This week on Travelogue Media.
What I realized, man, is like I have to make films and then come back for them later. I think that's what's gonna happen in my career. Like, I have to engage with life, but if I can make a small film, then I can always come back to that film and say, what did I want to do with this, and then write a script for it.
Filmmaker Akil Jacobs joins the show. He'll talk about travels to Europe and Africa, making films, and you'll even find out what a picky is. Stay tuned. We Grow Food Inc. presents the 20th Annual Bordeaux Farmers Rastafari Agricultural and Cultural Vegan Food Fair, January 14th and 15th from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. at Bordeaux Farmers Market in St. Thomas. Marking 20 years of struggle, challenges, and job blessings, the event features farm tours, live local entertainment, local arts and crafts, and a family activity center. Admission is $3 for adults, $1 for youth. For more information, check the We Grow Food Inc. Facebook page. Greetings and blessings, listeners. Thanks for joining me for another episode, another year of the Travelogue Media podcast. Let me wish you a happy new year. Hopefully 2017 is better. You can reach out on social media. I'm Travelogue Media on Facebook and Twitter, J. Clarl on Instagram, Travelogue Podcast on SoundCloud. And please send email to podcast@travelogue.media. El cuarto de Tula le cogió candela, se quedó dormida y no apagó la vela. Before I get to the interview, I'd like to make sure listeners know this year, 2017, is the 20th anniversary of the album Buena Vista Social Club. Actually, it's 20 years in September, but I don't think it's too early to start appreciating this album featuring so many talented Cuban musicians. I'd like to give a shout out, speaking of Cuba, I'd like to give a shout out to the Witness for Peace crew. I look back on those 10 days very fondly, and while I'm on the subject, I'd like to encourage listeners to sign up for a delegation to Cuba from March 24th to April 2nd. I'll put a link in the show notes if you're interested, but sign up quick before Trump can do any damage to Cuba-U.S. relations. All right, so this is the Travelogue Media podcast, and with me today is filmmaker Akil Jacobs. Welcome.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you having me on your podcast. Appreciate being here. Appreciate the energy. Appreciate everything, man. So I'm grateful. Thank you, man.
All right, well, appreciate you being here. Well, I introduced you as filmmaker Akil Jacobs, but I'm going to have you introduce yourself to listeners.
Okay. Dun, 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 dun. I'm born here in the Virgin Islands, so I'm born in St. Thomas, but I'm raised in the States, and I still have family here. I would often come back and forth from here to the States, so I have friends in the VI that I know from since I was a baby, a child, you know, so but I always love the islands, like, you know, I'm an island guy, man, from to the core. States is too big and cumbersome, you know. I prefer the beach, the warmness of the culture, that kind of thing is my kind of vibe. So I'm more of an island person. After my college, I studied philosophy in my undergrad. And then, you know, I went out to the workforce like, yeah, I got my degree in philosophy, minor in history, give me a good job. And they were like, no, So I had to start figuring stuff out. And then with that, I kind of got the opportunity to do some traveling. So my first place I went to was Egypt. That's what kind of my first, like, I mean, I had been traveling throughout the States and Canada and the Caribbean, but my first, like, transatlantic, like, you know, I went to Egypt. As I went there, I got into doing a little bit of writings. You know, I wanted to write a little bit about my experiences. Also, it was interesting being an African American in America and going back to Africa and then thinking like, yeah, I'm going to Africa, man. Woo, you know, motherland, brothers. And then it was like Arab Africa, which is like not real African Africa, you know. It's like a different Africa in itself, you know. It's like you're kind of down south and then you go up to like Utah, which is like one of the whitest states, you know. So you have that contrast. So it was like I went to Egypt and I was like, my brothers, and they were like, we're not your brothers, we're Arabs. And then it was like, oh, okay. But Egypt is important because that's kind of where I saw that I had an eye for film. I took a photography class in college and I liked it. It was good understanding the camera, and people like kind of liked some of the photos that I took, and it was kind of like I just began to understand it a little bit, right? So then I went to Egypt, and they have all these pyramids and all these interesting things to take photos of. So I started to take a lot of photos, you know, and started to basically communicate with that kind of artistry. But then after a while, it wasn't enough. And so I bought a camera here. I bought a camera, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go to Europe and make a film. To actually go to another country and make a film in a different country where English wasn't the first language. I didn't think about that, all that stuff. I was like, yo, I'm just going to make this film. I had this idea, and I'm going to fight for it, you know? And so I made it. It was shitty, according to my standards. Because I was filming it, I was in it, I was the main character, and I had other characters, and my editor didn't know what the hell he was doing, but editing with him kind of taught me to edit because he was so bad that I would just jump in there and be like, no, this and this and this, but at the end of the day, I made the film.
Get up! Move it! Move! Where you want me to go? Hurry up! He's waiting for you! He's waiting for you. Just go! Where you want me to go? Just go!
We had like 3 cameras going, sound, lighting. We had like, I don't know, 10 extras of main characters, sub-characters. Like, a girlfriend at the time, she's like, I don't know what this is all about, Akil, but alright, you know, I'm gonna support you and stuff like that, you know. And it was just like, geez. But I had like convinced myself to a degree that this is what I'm gonna do. I made up my mind, and so I said, no matter what, I'm just gonna make it, you know. I wrote up another script, called it Capitalism, and it was more about like life and death and that experience between life and death. And so we got a crew together, really small, and we made Capitalism. It kind of captured my skills and my vision a little bit better. It was a little better film, you know? And I was like, okay, that's where I'm at. Visions of the Fog was like way too big, abstract. That's really like a Hollywood blockbuster movie, you know? Car races and all kinds of shit, you know? So I just broke it down and I made capitalism, and I was proud of that one. I thought it was strange, it was weird, but it was a decent movie for what I wanted to achieve. It was a small crew, and we did it.
Did that play in festivals as well, or?
Yeah, so after we made these movies, you know, my girlfriend started sending them out to festivals. My girlfriend at the time. She started sending them out to festivals. We started looking for festivals. We showed it to people, and it was just like, well, Akil, you're not going to be a success overnight, you know. It's not what I thought. It was like, I thought like, bam, bam, after these 2 movies, I'm going to, Spielberg is going to call me, you know? But anyways, I got an opportunity to go to Norway to study. So then I studied environment. And also they had a program that was going to Africa, so I was like, yeah, you know? So I started making films in Norway and while I was studying environment. In the middle of all of this, and Sweden and all these different places while I was living in Norway, I flew back to the Virgin Islands. And that's when I made What Is Rasta. And I made that music video, Hatafaya with Ganji. So I was here for a month, so I said if I'm going to come all the way from Europe back here, I'm going to make it worth my while. And to me, worth my while would be making a film, like getting a film out of this. Because I had just had those 2 films that weren't so good. So I said, you know, let me make this documentary on Rasta. Because I had Rasta at the time. I had long locks, and in Europe, they kind of didn't understand the culture and stuff. So I said, I want to make a film where maybe give people some more understanding of what it is, what it's not. There's misconceptions on what is Rasta, and, you know, so, and also clear up stuff in my mind, you know, and so it turned out to be very positive, you know. Because a lot of people say, oh, you're a Rasta, you just smoke weed all day and hang out and talk about the illusions of grandeur, you know. Oh, man, this empire. And no, but, you know, Rasta is just, to me, it's positive living, togetherness, progression, love, honesty, truth, oneness with the earth, and eating healthy.
It is the way man live, the way man speak everything about man. That's what Rasta mean. Rasta is life. You know, I mean, if a man give me a choice, Rasta or life, I don't see no choice. You see, Rasta is life. It is what I am, it's everything I am. Everything.
You know, we have this tendency to beat up on Rastafari, and I don't like that. You know, I think in terms of religions or ideas or lifestyles, that's a very good lifestyle within Caribbean community. It's positive, means well, talks very good about Africa, which is, you know, the homeland to many Caribbean people, not all, but many, most. And so it's a very positive thing. So I don't like when people, you know, try to discredit it or talk, you know. So I felt like I needed to address it, you know. And I could see when I had my hair and dreadlocks, even though I wasn't a Rasta, maybe I had some of the followed some of the doctrine, some of it, you know, but not all. And so people had this weird, stupid idea. So I was like, no, man, this is not like that. I became like an ambassador in some way. It's like this and this and this, you know. Piki is the word for motorcycle. In Tanzania, they ride on motorcycles a lot. It's cheaper to get around. Taxis are very expensive. So I had a film. I had some time. So I said, hey, man, hey, how much would you charge me to just race? I want to do motorcycle racing, you know. And so I had another friend. I had two friends. One from Nepal, one from Tanzania, we were all from Norway, but we came down to, it was like a study abroad and then stay and do your thesis. So I was like, hey guys, I need help with this. And one wanted, the Tanzanian friend, his name was Moses, he wanted to be a filmmaker. So I was like, I'm going to teach you. And I had another friend from Nepal, his name was Saruj. He was just cool, man. So Saruj was like, Akil, brother, I'll help you. What do you need? And I was like, just come, man. I'll set up the camera, press record. You just stay there.
Yeah.
What I realized, man, is like, I have to make films and then come back for them later. I think that's what's gonna happen in my career. Like, I have to engage with life, but if I can make a small film, then I can always come back to that film and say, what did I want to do with this, and then write a script for it, and you know. And so I kind of did that with Picky Picky, you know. That's kind of like, one day when I write that script, I'll have like a visual trailer to put with it, you know, and be like, okay, this is, so when people see the script for that, even though it's been a couple of years, they can say, okay, I can see the visual, I can see kind of sort of what you mean. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do with that. After I was able to make those films, I made other films, you know. I went to film school. After I finished my master's, I went to film school, where I learned the basics of filmmaking. And I was able to work with people who also wanted to make films, even though it was insane in there, you know, people scrambling and fighting. My idea needs to, you know. But I learned what I needed to learn from there. So it was positive. My relationship with Sweden, the country, was breaking down, and I was looking for a way out. So I said, you know, let me go to Egypt. One, I could use my master's in Egypt. It was easier. I thought it was easier to get a job there because I'd been there before, and I wanted to make a film there. So, and I had friends there and who would take me in, and eventually, you know, I found a job in Sweden, but it was too late and too little money, so I just decided to go to Egypt, back to Egypt again. Post-revolution, after the revolution. And it was a completely different Cairo, man. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. More suffering. The people are always beautiful, you know, in their own way. They have their problems, but Cairo is always a bubbling, happy, fun, loving community and people, you know, with their problems. But Cairo was like an adventure, man. The first time I was there, I was all over, and it was welcoming. I had my roster, so everybody's like, Bob Marley, come have dinner with me, man. Can I take a picture? We love you. And I was like, I love you too. And the second time I didn't have my roster, which was good, because I didn't get all the attention, which I didn't want. But it just seemed like the people had been beat down more. It was more dangerous. I had to maneuver different. I had to watch my surroundings. As you know, back in the first time I was there, I'd party all night, man, get out there, jump in taxi, go. Reckless.
Yeah.
Not stupid reckless, but, you know, reckless. A little bit like, you know, we're hanging out.
Carefree.
You know, we're carefree, you know, we're good, you know. All I had to do was like, I'm American, and everybody be like, hey, man, and you have a Rasta, so we love you, you know. But the second time around, it was like, people were getting thrown in jail all over the place. And
so the people you worked with the first time you were there, were you able to maintain connections?
Oh, yeah. The same friend who I stayed with the first time I got there, a friend of mine picked me up from the airport. You know, he paid for everything. He was like, he'll stay in my place. Of course, he didn't have any furniture. So I had to catch up on the floor until he got some furniture. And then I met this guy, Amar Mamdou, who was an actor and a writer, and I sent him my script about the gang movie that I wanted to make, which was shorter. You know, the first one was like 115 pages. This one was like 50, 60. Short, tight. Plus, I flew all my equipment from Sweden to Egypt with me, you know. I was like determined to make this movie. I thought they were going to stop me at the airport and kick me out, you know, because of the whole drama situation. And we don't want any cameras in the country. What are you doing? Why you got this film, you know? I had to get a feel of the society and the people. And I couldn't make a film there. But I was still determined. I was just going to do it the legal way. Like right now, you could go out in the VI and make a film, you know, nobody really gonna say anything, but there people will arrest you. What are you doing? Are you against the government? You know. But unfortunately, I had a death in the family, so I had to come home. And Egypt was better for me, but it wasn't easy because I was making money, but I wasn't making enough money. And I love it here. It's my home, you know. Egypt is wonderful and Sweden is alright, you know, but this is my home, so I decided to stay home. So I decided I'll just write another script. And when I do ever go back to Egypt, I'll, you know, film. Scripts are not gonna spoil. I'm just gonna stay there until they're ready to be filmed. So I started to write this script here. This film is about a woman who is in a powerful position. It's a movie about it's about like kind of like I don't want to say it's a gangster film, but it's kind of like a struggle and a bit of drugs, some violence, it's some anger, some frustration within the VI society. It's growth. It's about abuse. It's about love. It's about a lot of different things, about loyalty, you know. It's about, you know, all these different things. Women trying to become, you know, balanced with the male, you know. America, we still haven't had a female president, you know, regardless of Hillary's downfalls or shortcomings or whatever. I want to see in my lifetime a black president, which I got to see, and I want to see a woman president, you know, and I want to see other shit like that, you know. It's funny, you know, it's really strange, you know. I go to Sweden, which is like one of the most gender progressive societies, and I come back and I start writing more films about women. But I guess it influenced me in a positive way, which is always good, because they're very like gender conscious in Sweden. You have to have a balance. Sometimes it's a little bit much, but it's good. It you know, it's good. It's good. And so there's other issues in Sweden. There's racial issues there, but in terms of the gender, they do that very well, which is a positive thing. You have to give that to them. So I make this story, and it deals with, you know, a lot of crime that we have in our society, why it is here. Oftentimes we look at the fruit of the tree and not the root of the tree. Why is the crime there? There's a lot of hurt people. There's a lot of issues within our society, within our politics. There's a lot of societies we're a territory within the mainland. As you hear about the divisions within America, racial divisions, political divisions, structural divisions, you know. So this film tries to address some of that within the territory, within the VI. A lot of people, they just sit on their artistry, man. They're just sitting in the shelf, sitting in the drawer, because they let that voice say, "Hey, man, don't. What are you doing? People are gonna critique it. They're not gonna like it, or you're gonna look stupid." It's only through making films that I've learned how to make films.
Experience is the best teacher.
Experience is the best teacher. Even in film school, you go to film school and they just say, "All right, man, here's what we're gonna make films. You want to swim? Go swim."
You'll find Akil on Facebook. It's Akil Jacobs. And make sure to let him know you heard him on this podcast. That's it for this edition of the Travelogue Media Podcast. Music this week was Mountain Dub by Gunnar Olsen. Be sure to hit the subscribe button on whatever you're listening from, make a donation, or give me a 5-star rating on iTunes. Follow the hashtag Travelogue Media for the latest updates, and check for new episodes on Tuesdays. Hasta la victoria siempre. Walk tall, live free. Thanks for listening to the Travelogue Podcast. Subscribe on iTunes, Android, Google Play, or your favorite podcast application. You can support this podcast by completing the audience survey, rating on iTunes, and by making a donation. Visit paypal.me/JSKmedia. Your comments, likes, and shares on social media are always appreciated. Send email to podcast@travelogue.media.